Okay, we are live, everyone. Welcome. It feels so long since we have done one of these. Um, and it just really hit me this week. Elizabeth, it's so nice to have you here.
Thank you.
And you and Janelle have been tag teaming, and we won't ever be able to discuss Miss Reed with Janelle again.
I know.
So it's really
I,
sobering. When somebody passes away, there are all these firsts you go through. Um, yeah. So,
yeah, I don't think I've been here since maybe January or February. Maybe
mhm.
January because you'd asked me about March and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be traveling." And then I've been behind ever since. And I just kind of like had to make myself get this book read fast
I
because I didn't want to read them fast. I want to just savor them, but
I
I was caught
know.
up except for this one and I talked to you a couple of days ago, and I was like, "Okay, it's 12 chapters. I can do this."
Yes. And you did it. Here you are.
And I did it. I finished the last 2 chapters this morning.
You got,
Hey.
I'm gonna hop off and okay. I'm gonna hop off and change my router setting because I think I am the one that's just
Gotcha.
screwing up for. So
Do
I'll be
do
back in
whatever
this.
you need to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, she is
Um,
freezing up.
yeah, yeah. So I'm not seeing any
Yeah.
comments, but it says we have 10 people with us. So, um, yeah, so we have some catching up to do because we have Village Affairs and The White Robin, and then the June book, Village Centenary. Um, Now, Elizabeth, I know you mentioned you had read The White Robin. Did you also read Village Affairs?
I've read
Okay.
everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess maybe we'll start with Village Affairs, and hopefully by the time the three of us are done, kind of our general thoughts on Village Affairs, Rainey will have gotten her internet to
All right.
cooperate.
I got to refresh.
Um,
Oh, I did even put a tag in something. So apparently there was something I wanted to talk about.
yes. um,
Oh, yeah. Okay. I forgot. I'm glad I put a tag there. I would have
oh,
never
perfect. Yeah. So Village Affairs, unfortunately, I really didn't enjoy that much. Um, and I think it was just the plot points happened to be ones I just didn't kind of gel with as much. Um, and I know Minnie Pringle frustrates me to no end. I really, really, really don't enjoy Minnie Pringle. Oh, Cami Castillo's here. Hi, Cami. Welcome. Um, and yeah, so that aspect of the plot was just very frustrating to me, and I think it was just I don't know the certain. Oh, here's Rainy. Yay! Add to stream.
Hello.
Yay! She's here.
Hopefully this will be better. I realized my router or whatever it is has like 3 different things that it could be on, and it was on like the dumbest one.
Oh,
Like it just set itself up to the one that like doesn't work at all. So hopefully this will be better.
your video's a little choppy, but we can hear you well. So that's the most important thing. I
Okay.
mean, that we can
Yeah,
hear
although
you
it's getting yeah, I feel like it's
better.
getting less
Okay.
choppy the longer you're on. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe it's just sorting itself out. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Your audio is
Okay.
definitely in real time now, though.
Okay.
Um,
All right. We'll see.
Yes. Yeah. So I was just saying that unfortunately I didn't really enjoy Village Affairs that much. And one of the main
Yeah.
reasons being Minnie Pringle. I find her just such a frustrating character and just get your act together. Um, she's just, I feel like she's just not very street smart. And she doesn't have any winning ways about her. Like, I really appreciate, I feel like Amy, you can get frustrated with her at different points, but she really does win you over in the end. And you're like, wow, Amy, she's complicated. Um, but she's a character that I've become so, so fond of. Uh, yeah. So I guess, Rainey, do you want to say your thoughts on Village Centenary? Or sorry, on Farmer Field.
Oh, and I thought we were doing
Okay.
Village Affairs.
Village
Or,
Affairs.
sorry.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, I am such a wreck. Village Affairs. Thank you, Elizabeth. You're going to keep us
I had
in
it in my
line.
head. Yes.
I
Yes.
love
Thank goodness you're here,
that.
Elizabeth. um, Well, I feel like I did like it, but like you, the whole Minnie thing was just a lot. And and it was interesting. Like I enjoyed that there was that much kind of drama in it, I guess, just because some of the misread books, while they're cozy, they kind of do run together sometimes, in
Yes,
just
that's
like that
true.
they don't have anything like huge happening. So this was kind of a big plot point, but then I feel like at the end it didn't end satisfactorily. Like she's still just Minnie. She's still just with these horrible abusive men, and
Yeah.
everybody's just like, "Oh well, it's just Minnie. These are just the men she's with." Like, no, that's not what you're supposed to be like bringing to the table here. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so the ending of that plot point was a little like wah wah. But just
Yeah.
unsatisfying, I suppose. But in general, I liked it. I just liked that there was like more going on, I guess, than in some of them. But but yeah, that was like the biggest thing about it, I think.
Yes. Yes. Um, yeah, and I didn't end up reading a physical copy for that one. I read on Hoopla, and Hoopla doesn't let you highlight the same way. So I
No.
don't usually have her writing is so beautiful, and there's always
Oh yeah.
a handful of words that I have to look up, and I'm like, that's such a cool term. Why doesn't anyone use that?
Oh,
Um,
I think speaking of that, I think in the last live stream, I watched it a couple times and I haven't had a chance to, I keep forgetting to make comments, but you guys were talking about the word fantod. Didn't you
yes.
bring that up? So I looked up something today that came up, and that was still in my like Google dictionary where I had looked up fantod. I was like, oh
Oh,
yeah, I forgot about that.
that's so great.
Because yeah, I had no idea what that, what that meant at all.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun if there was ever a publishing house that brought out new editions of Miss Reed's books to have a glossary in the back of kind of unusual
Oh yeah.
terms.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
Yes. And then Chelsea, what did you think of Village Affairs?
I didn't love it. It wasn't my favorite of the series. I have like my little notes on my phone of what I'm going to say, and the only note I have for Village Affairs is a bit boring. It felt like we had dealt with a lot of the plot before in different books. And that's the only note now. It's been so long since I read it that I'm like, I can't even remember what the plot points were that I thought were boring. But apparently, me in the middle of May thought it was a bit boring, and that was my feedback on Village Affairs. But I mean, while
Yeah.
we're talking about Minnie, obviously Minnie resurfaces in Village Centenary, and I am starting to feel a bit bad for her. Like I just feel a bit bad for her.
Kate's like, nah.
She's missing a few, you know, she's missing a few brain cells. Yeah, she's really not all together with it.
Yeah.
But she's
So
in like a genuinely abusive relationship, and everyone just keeps encouraging her to go back to this guy who's like
I
actually.
know.
I think it's because they don't want to deal with her.
I know that they're like
Yeah,
tired of helping her out, and like Mrs. Pringle doesn't want the whole brood of kids and everything. But I'm like, can we stop encouraging her to go back to this guy that's actually hitting her?
Yeah.
There's no support in leaving because every time she tries to leave, her family's just like, you got to go back to him. We don't want you here. And so
And go back with your tubes tied.
her. I mean, like, she's a really frustrating character. Like, I don't know, was it Village Affairs where she starts cleaning the house for?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, like that. I mean,
helping.
Terrible. It sounded terrible. I'm like, if that was my cleaning lady, I would also be at the end of my rope. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I know.
She's like breaking things, and you have to hide stuff so she doesn't wreck it while you're gone. Like, more work than help. But I do feel a little bit of pity for her.
Yeah.
I do because I feel like she doesn't know any better, and nobody around her is encouraging her to be better.
So she doesn't have a support.
Yeah. I mean, even Miss Reed doesn't really say a lot.
I think they feel that she's a lost cause.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
hear me out. I almost
Okay.
wonder, what if she, you know how pubs would have like housing above them?
mhm.
What if she was able to like move into the pub housing with her kids and she was like the barmaid and
Yeah.
took care of things in there, and her kids would be in school most of the time, and that are
But I
not
also
the
think
youngest ones.
it would turn into a different kind of book where she would be taking care of things at the bar.
It's very true. That's very true.
We don't need to encourage that extra thing in our life.
So then, Elizabeth, your general feelings on Village Affairs?
Well, I guess I was trying to remember if that was the one where she came to clean. Yeah, I mean, Miss Reed just really kind of put her foot in her mouth when she even made that offer. But, you know, she hated not to, because, you know, what are you going to do? It's like a situation where this woman obviously needs a strong hand of support, you know, but she doesn't. She just keeps making these poor life choices, and I was saying that when Chelsea was talking about how they keep sending her back. Yeah, it's like, why are they sending you back to this abusive relationship? But I'm thinking, even if they must send her back, make sure her tubes are tied so that she can stop having children.
Yes.
So, I mean, oh my goodness, it's just. And I think in the current, but the one we just read, Miss Reed made some statement about the children and how they'll probably end up on, you know, support, making more money, being supported by, you know, the government, because they're just kind of a lost cause. And they're, you know, it's sad because it makes you think about the people in real life who are actually like this. You know, I mean, Minnie's not a fictitious character in that, you know, there are real people who, you know, have these kind of issues. So it's a tough situation.
It really
I don't
is.
like
and
to
then
talk about my job online, but I deal with that every day.
I appreciate Sharon's comment. It's just, people are just kind of who they are.
Yeah.
And I think part of that I think about is we're all born with certain temperaments. And so I think that kind of knowing what your strengths and your weaknesses are and trying to work from there is a good thing to do. You know, being honest about, I'm great at this, I'm not so great about this. But I don't think Minnie has any concept of self-improvement.
No, definitely not. I think she just thinks that she's practically perfect in every way, and nobody understands her.
Oh, do you want me to share the little thing that I had tabbed?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So it was really just a question, and it was in chapter 2 where a kid got a nosebleed, and several people mentioned putting something metal behind their neck.
Oh, yeah.
And I wondered what's up with that, because I, you know, like, is it an old wives' tale? Kind of like, I've read books where they put like a knife behind the back of someone who's giving birth to cut the pain. And I'm like, is there something to do with that? Or is there actually something about the metal that they think like draws the blood back in their nose? I don't know. I was just curious.
I know, I meant to look that up.
Yeah.
I'll see if Google pops anything up.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I actually tried to look it up or if I just wrote the note in there and meant to come back. Maybe someone.
I know that's
nothing's popping up.
My Google is saying that it's because it's cold.
Okay.
Cold?
So it would make the blood contract.
Home remedies that apply cold on the neck in the form of keys or a cold butter knife can help staunch a nosebleed.
Huh.
Usually, like, it would be better, they're saying, to do like, you know, a bag of peas or a cold washcloth or something. But I guess some people would have car keys and they're metal, and that's kind of colder.
Interesting.
I don't know why that
I've never heard of that. I used to get nosebleeds as a kid all the time, and we never did anything like that. It would just be like, hold your head back,
Yeah.
and get a cloth.
Yes.
I was
I
getting them
never
there.
did. What's that?
Oh, I was just because when I was working on that big cross stitch piece for my dad, it was in the middle of winter, and I kept getting nosebleeds. It was the most panic inducing.
Oh man.
Oh,
I would feel them coming on, and I'd be like, oh no, get away from the cross stitch.
I don't think I've ever had a nosebleed.
What's that?
I don't think I've ever even had a nosebleed.
Really?
Really?
that's what
That's
I
impressive.
was gonna say that I didn't as a kid, and when I was a nanny I think it was in the dry winter months, this little boy would get them, but I flipped out the first time I came in. I was getting him up. He's 3, and I go to his bed, and he's like just covered in blood, like
Oh,
blood all over
gosh.
his face, over his shirt, and I just started screaming for the dad because the dad worked from home, and he came downstairs. He's like, "It's a nosebleed," and I'm like, "Really? It looks like someone murdered him."
yeah, we never figured out why I used to get them so much, but I don't know. I remember my mom, and she would talk, she would talk to the other ladies, and they'd be like, maybe it's adenoids or something. I don't know, but we would ask the doctor about it, and they didn't seem too concerned because it would stop pretty soon. So I don't get them anymore. It was when I was a kid, but who knows?
Yeah, that is weird. Some kids just have a tendency to get them more.
I know how I always bring this stuff back to Little House on the Prairie, but remember later in the series where Albert was getting nosebleeds because he ended up having some kind of cancer?
No.
Remember didn't he end up dying? Is that I'm thinking of the right? I think it was Albert, but he was getting nosebleeds all the time. And I think that's how they found the cancer. So then after I saw that episode, every time I'd get a nosebleed, I thought I had cancer.
Oh no!
My mom's like,
"That's what TV will do to a person."
I know.
Oh, yes. Okay, so then we can do. You know what? I'm going to put a banner because I feel like being fancy.
Fancy.
Oh, here's a good illustration of Minnie with Miss Reed.
Yep, she's a mess.
Such a hot mess.
And there's an even better one in the book we just read. When we get to it, I'll show it too.
I ended up listening to it on Kindle, so I didn't look at any of the illustrations. I'll have to go back.
Oh, okay.
I was just trying to get it done on time.
Yeah,
and I picked it for Janelle-a-thon, so I was like, I wanted to make sure that I got it done reasonable amount of time.
Yes. So then the White Robin, I really enjoyed. I thought it was a really nice kind of breath of fresh air after being frustrated with Village Affairs. I really appreciated, this is so bad. What is the name of the little boy, the troubled little boy?
Simon.
Thank you. I love that cover. Oh,
I know. I do too.
Sorry, I have to show this before that picture of Minnie didn't misread say she looks like a demented scarecrow. I forgot that. Sharon, thank you for reminding us that that's a brilliant quote. Oh. So it felt, I appreciated the complexity that you could see of all the emotions that Simon was feeling. And that is such a heavy burden for an adult to carry when they can, to an extent, process all the complex emotions, and that they'll get anxiety or they like break out in hives. Like it manifests differently as an adult. But then how much more complicated and helpless would a child feel? And I'm sure some guilt, obviously it wasn't his fault, but you do that, when something's wrong with mom, like, oh, maybe I did something. And so it's really, really sad, you know, how it ends, or right before the end, a couple chapters before the end, when he kills the Robin. But I kind of get it. It's like, I'm really, really hurting inside, and I don't really know what else to do about it. And I really appreciated that nobody just like kicked his butt afterwards too. Like, I was kind of like, these kids are really gonna like lay into him.
Yeah.
And they all
Willett was going to.
What's that?
Mr. Willett was going to. He was the man.
Yes. Yeah. So that, I don't know. I just really appreciated how she dealt with it. I feel like these books, you can kind of, I mean, you can kind of breeze through them, but I don't think that it means that they're any less poignant or meaningful. And so I appreciate it. She deals with some really heavy topics. And then you'll have, you know, funny things happen in them too, like how the bird expert, was it Henry Maughan? Was that his name?
Yes. Yeah.
He was so fixated on all of the bird politics. So yeah, I really liked this one. So Chelsea, what did you think of The White Robin?
I really enjoyed it as well. I liked that it had a bit of a darker tone than some of the books.
Yes.
Which, like you said, was kind of a nice change after some books that are kind of just, you know, daily life in the village. This had like some really deep themes that she was dealing with.
Yes.
It reminded me a little bit, I don't know if you've got yet to that Vinyl Cafe story, The Bird, but it reminded me
No, I haven't.
There's a Vinyl Cafe story where a rare bird shows up in their backyard, and all of a sudden, like, all these birders are flocking to their yard to try to get a picture of this bird. And so I had to laugh because I was like, oh, this is kind of like that story. But I just thought it was sweet how excited everyone in the village got about this bird, and like wanting to feed it fancy food, and like, and then when Mr. Monet is trying to describe to everyone like bird genetics and why they shouldn't get their hopes up for another white robin right away, it's like, no, it's going to be a recessive trait. We need to wait at least like another 2 years before it's possible to see a white robin.
And they're like, that's nice.
Yeah, and then that cracked me up, and it reminded me of like trying to describe parts of like genetic genealogy to family members, and it's just like, I understand the frustration when I'm like trying to talk about my chromosome browser that I've built for myself and stuff, and it's like, oh, poor Mr. Monet. I feel your pain.
And then I love how the community really came together for it, and how Mrs. Pringle is bringing the bird mealworms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just like such a wholesome thing for them to get invested in.
Yes.
And yeah, so I like that we had like that was really wholesome, but then we had these darker themes with Simon and, you know, trying to recover from the death of his mother and not really fitting into this town and all that kind of stuff. So
yes,
really enjoyed it, and I was glad to see kind of a little bit of a resolution now in Village Centenary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. This almost felt like a little trilogy with that whole plot line with Simon, and then kind of having, like you said, some resolution in Village Centenary. I didn't even think of that. That was really cool how that linked up.
When it was like the end of White Robin, you're not really sure. Like, he kind of gets sent away from Fairycare, and you're like, oh, I hope this kid turns out okay and can get some real help, because he's obviously not doing very well. So then to see in Village Centenary that things have kind of turned around for the family was a relief, after I was worried about him after. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. No, I agree. And then Rainey, what did you think of The White Robin?
Well, I liked it. It was not my favorite, only because I felt it got a little bit repetitive with all the bird talk. And I love birds. but I was like, this is a short book, and there's a lot of like just the same talk about like, will we get another white robin? Will we? Like, where is the white robin? What is that? So like towards the end of it though, I enjoyed it more because we not because the White Robin died, but just we had like
That
more
was
of
a highlight for
I
me.
know. Then all the bird talk stopped because the bird died. But just like we just kind of started getting the ball rolling with the Simon plot. I felt like, and then the woman who comes in that I keep wanting to call Dolores Umbridge, but that's not her name.
Not Mrs. Pringle, right?
I
No,
read Irene Umbridge.
Umbleditch?
Yeah,
Umbleditch.
Umbleditch, yes. I just keep referring to her as Dolores Umbridge.
That's awesome.
She's a much nicer lady.
Names are, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I liked that plot line. Like you said, there was, it was, more serious and I did like the White Robin story, just, how excited everybody got for it. I think just probably it was more like my timing because it was such a short book, but it was taking me a really long time to get through just because of other things going on. And I think I felt like every time I picked it up, it's like, we're just trying to find this dang Robin again. Like everybody's just looking for the Robin. So I think it was just, I just was really busy when I was trying to read it. So like I just read a few pages and then, pick it up like 3 days later and still the same thing was happening. So I was a little
You're like, what do you know?
So, but I did like the whole Simon plot line, and I liked the initial excitement of the bird. And I thought I really liked the part with Mr. Bond and how he was getting so frustrated with people over like not understanding and
Yes.
and not caring what he had to say. Like his whole article that he like took so much care to write, and like everybody doesn't pay attention to most of it, and just wants to look at the pictures or something. And so I thought that was pretty funny. But so yeah, so I liked it, but I think it was just my timing and how I was reading it. I was just getting a little like, come on, let's go with it.
Keep things moving.
Yeah.
Yes. And then that leaves Elizabeth.
Well, I think Rainey, the reason it was so repetitive like that is because she was trying to show that was all the talk of the town. That White Robin just took over their thoughts. That's all, that's what they were thinking about. That's what they were looking for. I think that's probably why she did it like that, because it was just to show that, that was at the forefront of their minds at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting, and I think she kind of tried at the beginning to make the point where, because Mr. Mon kept saying how that the White Robin might be subject to some kind of bullying from the other Robins because it's different. And I thought there was kind of supposed to be sort of a parallel between him and Simon, because Simon is kind of like the White Robin of the children.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
don't they describe him as very pale and like blonde too? Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
And of course,
I didn't think that.
She talks about how, as soon as she started saying how Simon was jealous if anybody else got attention, I thought, oh, he's going to kill that bird. I knew it. I was just like, but you brought up a point that I hadn't really thought about, was about just his anger over, trying to lash out because he had no control over his mother, but he did have control over, it's almost like if he was like, if I'm Simon, I'm saying, well, if I have to be angry, I want to make everyone else angry too. I want them to hurt as much as I do. And so, at that moment, that was the thing that would hurt everybody the most, was to kill the bird. Yeah. I don't think he necessarily wanted the bird dead. He just was he was hurting so much that.
That's on a more selfish note. It makes me think of, and I don't know if it's in the book Little Women, but in one of the movies, Amy, after she burns Joe's novel, says to her, I wanted to make you upset. And the only thing I knew to make you really upset was to do something to your writing.
Yeah.
But you could have just torn a couple pages. That's really going hard to just burn the entire book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or hidden it and been like, when you give me lime money, you know, then I'll tell you where it is. Any
Amy
other?
was a
Yeah, we're
that?
talking about not being able to see
Amy was-
illustrations. Did you see the one of Simon? I'll show you in here. Is Simon? I had it. Well,
I really do love the illustrations.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
That's a
Where
little
you
boy who's
see
not doing.
And you know, Chelsea, I think you were talking about the 70s clothing and stuff. You know, there's a tendency to think that this is earlier than that, but it's not. I mean, the one we just finished is 1980. So I'm like, okay, I was middle of high school in 1980. That doesn't seem that long ago. And that's what we wore. I mean, I was basically this age, a little older, but you know, that's what we wore. So
well, and yeah, we definitely got a definite timestamp too, because in Village Centenary, Miss Claire talked about something being 50 years ago in 1930.
Yeah.
So that was helpful.
Yeah, I was pretty shook.
I
was like, what? I didn't realize, because I remember in some of the earlier books in the series, we figured it was like late 50s, early 60s, kind of just based off of what they were saying about World War II being like. So I'm like, man, 20 years have gone by, and I guess it makes sense because we're on like book 15 or 16 now, the series, so it's kind of like a book a year roughly. But it just doesn't feel like. I don't feel like Miss Reed has aged 20 years. Like she's
not aging to kids either. Hasn't Joseph Coggs been in her class like this entire time?
They're like Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah.
I love that she gave him a job. I think that was in Village Affairs, or was it before that, where she had Joseph Coggs to come and work. So she could feed him.
Oh, I think that was White Robin.
Done it a couple times.
Was it White Robin? Maybe. Okay. Yeah, but I like that. I like
those two blend together for me at this point. But,
Yeah.
No,
she's really, really thoughtful. So then Village Centenary, I really enjoyed. Well, Amy, just like I was saying earlier, she's really become one of my favorite characters. And I think the book that really clinched it for me was Farther Afield, when they go on the trip together, when her husband is deciding whether or not he's going to stay with her. And she's made of tougher stuff than she might seem at first. And I really appreciate that Miss Reed, who I love, she always, gets referred to as Miss Reed, but she calls her Amy. She just is kind of like, I accept you as you are, Amy. I'll tell you when you're annoying me, but I accept you as you are. And I just think that's true friendship, just to know everybody has flaws, and you just have to decide, are they what you're willing to put up with? So part that made me laugh so hard in Village Centenary was with the vicar's beekeeping. It says, later in the morning, when we were about to clear the desks ready for school dinner, Eileen Burton rushed in from the lobby in a state of panic. "There's a funny man in the playground," she gasped. At once there was a rush to the door. The Bob checked there and turned to me in some dismay. "He's all dressed up in white, miss. Got one of them sun hats on, miss. He's blowing smoke, miss. Looks like a man from Mars to me, miss," said the school wag, and I'm sure they're all like yelling this at the same time. "Well, let me come through and then I can see," I said. A narrow passage was made through the milling mass. Sure enough, a white-clad figure, crowned with a topi, from which white veiling fell to the shoulders, roamed apparently aimlessly round the playground. In its hand was a contraption with a nozzle, which occasionally belched blue smoke. Memories of a recent television program, which I had been too idle to switch off, came back to me. "It's the vicar," I told them. "He'd never dress up all funny," Ernest rebuked me. "Looking for bees. Now go inside and I'll have a word with him."
I love that.
And then he says to her, "Oh, my dear Miss Reed," he exclaimed, "how you startled me." He was just off in his own little world.
Beekeeping world.
I have an interesting trivia. Apparently, when the Queen died, they kept bees on the grounds of Buckingham Palace, and they went and they told the bees, like officially, that the Queen had died.
Aw,
Yes.
Wow.
that's weird and cute at the same time.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Imagine being like a little intern or whatever, and your boss comes, you have to go out to the beehive and tell them the Queen is dead. You're like, what do you mean? Like, I just go and stand there and say it? Like,
Is this a
Although I
joke?
think,
Am I being?
like Queenie and Lark Rise to Candleford, she's always talking to her bees. Like, I think that's a thing that you talk to the bees.
okay.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
like in old folk culture. I don't know.
No, okay.
Interesting. That's funny.
Yeah.
There was a Lark Rise Candle shout out actually in Village Centenary. She mentioned that she was reading.
Yes.
Oh,
Lark
That
Rise.
was one. Yes. Yeah, that is a good friend who they go just that's another point for Amy is she was just wandering around Blackwell's and was like, sure, you know what, I'm gonna get this book for my friend. So Rainey, what did you think of Village Centenary?
I really liked it.
Good.
And I'm trying to think of like the parts that because again, I was just trying to like listen to it and I didn't write anything down. But Amy for me is annoying still. she's almost as annoying as Minnie for me. But
Wow. Oh, that's high up.
almost.
Strong word.
Because I feel like if I were Miss Reed, I don't know that I could put up with the constantly telling me that I need to get married when I know your husband is out there cheating on you all the time and you don't have a good marriage and yet you're telling me I need to be married.
It means I can be as happy as you.
Yeah. No, it's like, I don't know. I feel like I would not be as patient and kind as Miss Reed. I know I wouldn't be.
Actually, it's interesting because I was talking to my grandmother at the beginning of the month when we visited, and she told me she had a friend that she told her like, I know my husband runs around with other women, but I have my country club membership. I get a new car each year. I have this, this, and this. So I just let him do that. I have like my nice lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I can see that to a point. Like, you know, and well, I wanted to say in that time period, but apparently it was the 80s. So it wasn't like way back in the day when.
It was 1980 was still way back in the day.
Well, that's true. It was at least 40 years ago because I was born in 83. So.
I think part of it is a divorce would just be such an ordeal. And she'd have to like go through a lawyer to figure out how much money she was going to get. I think she's just daunted at the idea of changing her life that much. And she's just kind of like, I'll just hope for the best, I guess. But I agree.
Yeah.
It is it's pretty rich for her to then like constantly tell Miss Reed, like, you really should get married.
Yeah. Well, and it would be different, I think, if she didn't know that Miss Reed knew. But she's got I know she knows that she knows. So it's like, but yeah, so I think like the whole thing with her was kind of annoying, but it was funny that she was trying to, what'd she call it, slim down or something like that, and they were having this big, you know, back and forth about what was acceptable to eat and all this stuff, and I thought that was because that's like a real friendship, a real conversation that you would have with friends. Yeah. But yeah, so I just, this one just seemed very like nice, kind of, that there was just like a lot of hubbub over the centenary and just like the different little vignettes of the people, and
Yeah.
it was kind of like back to the first few books where we're just getting like little snippets of everybody's life, and I like that.
Although the fixing the skylight in the school
Oh yeah,
was so frustrating. How there's the one guy who he's very charming when you actually interact with him, but he's constantly like dashing off when he knows somebody wants to talk to him.
Reg.
Yep.
And he did it wrong. Mr. Willett was like, oh, blah, 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 blah. I can't believe he's doing a dormer window, I think is what they said he put in. And he was right all along.
Yep. Yeah, and that's real life too. Contractors are constantly doing that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Not all contractors, just sketchy ones.
I don't know if you remember this scene in Sleepless in Seattle. So Tom Hanks is a contractor, and they're there with this very type A lady. She's having her kitchen redone. And she's like, I know I said the refrigerator was going to be this width, but I realized it can't fit my catering trays for when we have an event. And so she's like, I need you to push the wall out. And they're like, that's going to be, the one guy's like 6. And then his friend is like 8. And then he's like 10 weeks at it. They could just keep like going up and up. They want to give themselves some cushion.
Yep.
So Elizabeth, what did you think of Village Centenary?
Okay. First of all, let's talk about the title, because I have to confess, I have always, until yesterday when I saw Rainey's video, I've been calling it Village Centenary.
Oh, that's
funny. When I watched Rainey's video yesterday, she said, whatever it is now, because I have a hard time saying it right. Centenary. And I was like, oh, Rainey got that wrong. That can't be how you say it.
Bless her heart.
Just look that up on Google. Google Centenary. I'm like, nuh-uh. Google.
Oh, thank
Centenary.
goodness.
I'm like, listen, Johnny, no, that can't be right.
Are you sure though there's not more than one? Is there just one?
I don't know. But then it made me think of this whole scenario. Okay, so I thought, man, if it's Centenary, then it's going to be hard not to say centenary and put an extra syllable in there, which I despise when people do that. I had a middle school language arts teacher who taught us all about auxiliary verbs. And I was like, what? I mean, I sweat the small stuff. Okay. I DNF'd that book because I live to sweat the small stuff. So I even wrote her a note in like pick and scratch handwriting. Look up the number of syllables in auxiliary, you know. And do you know that she corrected it? She corrected herself. And I told her never, it was completely anonymous. My teacher, she didn't know who wrote her that note. But anyway, I love to be able to pronounce things correctly. And I hate being wrong. And I was just like, coming to terms with the whole thing, the whole idea that I've been wrong.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad because otherwise I would have come on here and I would have like argued with y'all. Y'all are all saying it's Centenary.
But you know what? Sharon, that's how I say it too. I wonder if there's different. It depends on what part of the country you're from.
Maybe.
Kind of thing. Don't beat yourself up, Elizabeth.
I'll make you feel better, Elizabeth. I had never actually said the word chasm. I just always, like, I'd read it, but I'd never actually said it. Well, I was in Godspell and had to like sing that word in a solo. And for practices, I was saying chasm, I think. Yeah, I think that's how I was saying it.
Correct.
I said it for like.
That's right. That's understandable because like chalice, English is just weird.
Right. And I mean, that's not like really a word that you see very often, much like centenary. But but nobody was correcting me for like, I would say a good few weeks of me singing this song in rehearsal. And finally one of the pianists was like, Rainey, come here. And she like took me backstage and she's like, you have been saying that word wrong for weeks. And I need to correct you because it's driving me nuts. I was like,
why didn't you say that weeks ago?
I know,
Yes,
right?
yes, please. Why didn't you just tell
You're
me
like,
right from the start?
thanks for letting me go this long without correcting
I
me.
know.
Now,
But I'm
what
glad
I'm
she did
surprised,
before I got up on stage and said it to a bunch of people.
yes.
Oh yeah.
Well,
All
I'm
right.
surprised that they didn't just call it a centennial also.
Yeah, that's weird.
I don't know.
Centenary.
So, Elizabeth,
And the
aside
other thing
from the annoying
too.
title,
Okay, so then the other thing is, I thought it was going to be about a person, but that would be centenarian if it was a person. I thought
Oh,
this whole book was going to be about like Miss Claire turning 100 or something, but no, it was the
yeah.
school.
Oh, that's
Okay,
true.
yeah. So I want to say a word about Miss whatever her name is. Is it Briggs? What is her
Oh,
name?
yes.
oh, the young
The
teacher,
other
Miss
teacher.
Briggs.
Briggs.
I think
Okay.
it's Briggs.
So here's
Yeah.
the illustration. I feel like the illustrator is making her a young Mrs. Pringle because look at her picture.
Oh, yeah.
She's a young, and Mr. Willett called her something like an old lump of a girl.
Aw.
I'm like, she is young Miss Pringle, and I'm glad she
Yep.
seemed to really grow. You just want to like despise her character in the beginning. How dare she even think that she could leave school when her kids haven't even been picked up? She's like, I get my hair washed on Friday, all this stuff. And she was in a hurry to leave it. And I think she said, well, the timing, it says 3:30. And Miss Rita's like, not in teaching. So yeah, she was just an interesting character, and
That's a polite way of putting it.
so I was glad to see her have some personal growth throughout the story. Where she seemed to actually, although it kind of stinks that she had to have a man in her life for her to actually improve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was that, which was kind of crazy since here's Miss Reed, who obviously doesn't want a man in her life, and she's just fine. But
Yeah.
I don't know. That was kind of just an aside.
Different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Yeah.
Although, what I'm worried is then in the next book, he's going to break up with her, and then she's going to be even worse than she was in the beginning.
Yep.
But I loved seeing Miss Claire again.
She's such a precious character.
Yes, and having her part in it. I thought they did a great job with the program. I mean, I would have loved to have sat and watched that program that they put on,
Yeah.
While I'm showing illustrations, Minnie has her hair done in this one because this is Minnie.
Oh, Minnie.
Oh, yes, I remember that one. Yep.
I'm just not a fan of it. Looks like she's wearing a dress with a really low drop waist. But is she wearing a skirt and a sweater?
She's wearing a jumper over it. In England, they call it jumpers, right?
Yes, they do.
Sweater, yeah.
Okay, I see.
It's just a long skirt with the jumper, and Miss Reed mentions the sandals that her toes are pinched into, like her open-toed sandals. So yeah.
Oh gosh. Oh,
anyway.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And then Chelsea, what did you think?
I enjoyed this one. It's not like a favorite, but it's definitely not unenjoyable. I really like the format of going through the calendar year. I'm like a sucker for that kind of slice of life.
Seasonal.
I love, yeah, exactly. You get all the changing of the seasons scenes. A fun plot idea to have them celebrating this centenary and kind of looking back on the impact of the school on the town and the townspeople over the past 100 years. I really like those little moments of people being like, oh, this was my story with the school, and this was my story. So I really like that. The one quote that I wrote down because I thought it was so funny was when Amy showed up with flowers for Miss Reed, and she said, Amy held a bowl of pink hyacinths in her hand. Coals to Newcastle, I expect. I know you do well with bulbs. And I was like, I don't know if that's like an expression that's common in the UK, but it just cracked me up. Coals to Newcastle.
Because I was waiting for it to be explained. I thought you were going to explain it.
Oh,
yeah.
Because Newcastle is like produces coal. It's like the main coal producing town.
Okay.
Saying like, it's like bringing coals to Newcastle. So it's like she thinks that Miss Reed is like an amazing gardener, I guess, and bringing flowers to her is like pointless. But she wanted to do it anyway, and I've never heard that expression, and I cracked up.
Like, that's fun. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you like pointed that out to us.
I had no idea.
Again, it's a genealogical thing because I have ancestors from Newcastle who are involved in the coal industry. So I'm like, I bet that's a reference to that, and I googled it, and it's like, yeah, sure enough, that's the origin of that expression.
Wow.
So cool. I really like that.
That's cool.
Deeply entertained at her trying to find books to give away for the secondhand book sale. And she promises the person, she's like, oh yeah, I'll come up with like at least a dozen. Like I have so many books to get rid of. And then she starts trying to get rid of books. And then ends up with one that she can get rid of.
Well, also I would be stressed. Like, okay, I'll toss them in a bag. Like, I'm sorry. Hold on.
I'll lovingly place them.
What's that?
I'll lovingly place them in a gift box with tissue paper.
And wear kid gloves.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. Like she just starts sitting down. She's like, oh yeah, this one can go. And then she sits down and starts flipping through it. She's like, actually, I have to say that. I'm like, oh, that's so deeply relatable. I did think it was weird. There's like multiple references to Hitler's patience, which I don't know if that's like an expression. That was not an expression in my world growing up, but it must have been. I'm like, that's kind of a weird expression. Like, oh, my patience was being tried like Hitler or something. I'm like, like 2 or 3 times in this book. It was literally like multiple times in this book. I was like, okay, I guess.
It's kind of always too soon for a Hitler joke, I think.
I don't think I don't think that'll ever be like, let's make a Hitler joke.
It was just kind of jarring. But I'm thinking maybe it's an expression that was more popular in the UK, or maybe more popular more close to the war. I don't know. And then I love the ending, of course. I thought the ending was so sweet.
Oh yeah.
The bonding.
I totally forgot to mention that.
Miss Claire and Miss Reed, and kind of them recognizing the similarities in each other's lives. I just love that.
Yeah.
I got really choked up when she told her she was giving her the cottage.
Yeah.
And it had just been this kind of just this continual source of stress for years at the back of her mind. And she kept being like, I'll figure something out later.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was
like every book up till now. There's always a portion of it where she's like thinking about, what am I going to do when I retire? And like, I should have done. Yeah, right. Or I should have done this earlier, but I'm a procrastinator.
And I think even if the school closed at this point, now since Miss Claire has made that offer, she would probably invite Miss Reed to come and live with her. Just like, since she doesn't have Dolly Claire anymore. I mean, not Dolly Claire. She doesn't have Emily Davis anymore. So, I think that would be a nice arrangement.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Would not be surprised if that happens.
I know. And I don't want Miss Claire to die. I want her to live through the whole series and her still be alive, like, and be 100 and be a centenarian by the end of the last book.
She's going to be our Missy in this one, where we're all just going to have like a meltdown when she dies.
Yeah. I was scared it was going to happen this book. I know, me too. When it was like, I let her sleep in because she needed her rest in between the two little programs. I'm like, oh no, she's going to go up with the breakfast. I can't. Like, I thought it was going to happen in this book. So
it's like, we can't have that this month. No. Bad timing, Miss Reed.
I just wanted to say hi to Diane, who said she's reading Miss Reed Village School right now. I'm so glad that you're enjoying it. You have so many good ones ahead of you. So then I guess that leaves Rainey. Does it leave you to talk about Village Centenary, or did you talk about it?
I think I did already, because I was talking about how she annoys me. Yeah. I think.
Yes. Okay, so I know Chelsea.
I've finished my thoughts.
Oh yeah, We got a song.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah. No, yeah.
Can we talk about, I love that Miss Quinn of No Holly for Miss Quinn fame, she's featured in a couple, and then she featured a lot more in this one. And that was another really sweet resolution too. And I appreciated too how she said, oh, I've been so self-absorbed. I hadn't thought of it from their point of view. She kind of just thought all about like how it would be for herself and, well, I'll just be a burden. I'll be this, I'll be that. But then when she thought what their life was actually like and how the husband would be away periodically, she was like, oh, actually, no, I think they genuinely would like me to stay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I liked her little cameo appearances.
Yes.
She's a good character. And I like how back in the previous book when we first met her, how she stood up for herself and didn't just let her get sucked into volunteering for every single thing that someone asked her to do, you know.
Yes.
She was strong. I was like, yes, I wish I had that strength.
She didn't get voluntold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see Debbie's comment about the coals to Newcastle?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And hi, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
Hello, Debbie. Oh, cool.
So I was just thinking about next month, we're supposed to read Summer at Fairacre and Mrs. Pringle, but we could slow it down and just read one book in the month if we wanted to. How do you all, you be fine with that?
I would rather just read one. I know you're trying to get through and not have to read in October, right? I was looking at the length of them, and I feel like the last 2 or 3 are shorter if we doubled up in November instead of.
Yeah, yeah, I know I won't be able to meet in October.
Right.
Because I feel like jam pack my Zoom meetings with October stuff. And also, I mean, we could finish the series in January. We don't necessarily have to finish by the end of the year. So
this one, I have this one, by the way, if you want to see.
Oh, that is so fun. Oh, exciting news. My mom has a misread collection and she's giving it to me.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
Awesome.
So I don't know if she has the complete Fairacre and complete Thrush Green. I don't know what she has. She has some of the newer paperbacks, but some of the pretty ones that Elizabeth has been holding up. So that'll be fun when they do.
I got most of these at a library bookstore when they had weeded a bunch off their shelves, and they were all in one box for $10 for the box. And I was like, thank you, Lord, for letting me get here on the right day, because I snatched those up as fast as I could. I was like, I would have paid 20 or more, and it was just $10. And I got so many old these hardcover library copies.
Wow. The only thing is, then it makes me so sad that like nobody was checking them out, so that's why the library pulled them off.
Maybe, but sometimes they just weed out old stuff anyway. But I like Sharon's comment. I think Miss Reed is best enjoyed at a leisurely pace. Yeah, I agree. I don't want to rush through them.
Yeah, I have like this month. I was kind of like, okay, I can do this.
I was just doing my TBR list for July, and I was like, oh, I want to read this Austen and this Austen. I was like, oh, and then I got to read this and this. And I'm like at 10 books, and I'm like, it's July. I have graduation parties out the wazoo. Why do I think that I can do that?
You're going to stop in Hogsmeade and get a time turner. That's what's going to happen.
I mean, that would be lovely. I wish I could do that, however.
Right? Oh, amazing. Well, I think I'll end.
Is best enjoyed Christmas time.
Before you end, I am like bursting with something about Tyler's Row. So I knew I wasn't going to get to chat with you guys about this one, but I remember I sent you a message. I was like, oh my gosh, this book. So here's the thing, and I watched y'all's thing, and nobody brought this up. So in Tyler's Row, just to refresh you, you know, the was it Peter and his wife, they were going
I
to
can't remember
be
their names.
moving. They were going to be
Mhm.
moving to Tyler's Row.
Oh, yes.
So they were, I forget where they were coming from. Maybe, I don't think it was very far. It was probably like 5 or 10 miles to get from where they were before to Tyler's Row. And yet, I'm sorry, I have cats and my daughter's in here too. And yet they were sitting at the breakfast table, throwing away their food and pouring the milk out the window.
Oh.
Do you remember that? And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
why are they not going to need food when they get to their next house 10 miles down the road? Why do they have to throw away all their food? It's like, oh, what am I going to do with this milk? And he's like, throw it out the window. And I'm like, what?
You don't have to do that with a local move.
I know. Yeah. It was just like, I was just like bursting with that. I was like, why? Why are they throwing out their food? Move 10 miles down the road.
Yes, I agree. Well, thank you to everyone who's joined us in the chat. And it's just been so lovely to be back together and talking about these books. And hopefully the stars will align in July and Angie will be back with us as well.
Yay!
So, yes.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you all have.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you, Elizabeth, for joining us.